An incredibly talented and compassionate man, Elton John is also known for his fair share of controversy. However, the story of his relationship with Princess Diana is much deeper than what the average person knows. It was a world-famous friendship that abruptly fell apart. The real reason remained a mystery for a long time. Elton John has now spoken out and exposed a surprising fact, a remarkable turn of events. For what reason did Diana break up with Elton? Above all, why did Elton finally speak out after decades of silence? Let us piece together this remarkable story. Elton John's shocking revelation, the untold story of Princess Diana. Not only do his remarks have weight due to the fact that he is one of the most beloved performers in the world, but also due to the fact that he is a guy who has lived many lives, both in the public eye and behind closed doors. However, despite his prominence and his willingness to share his thoughts, there are certain stories that Elton has held very near to his heart. One of these stories, up to this point, was about his friendship with Princess Diana. During a poignant conversation, Elton John broke his long silence about the reasons for his split from Princess Diana. He revealed a surprising truth that no one expected, that the split between them was not simply the result of a simple misunderstanding or disagreement. Instead, there was an external factor that contributed significantly to the breakup. According to Elton, Charles's intervention not only affected his personal relationship with Diana, but also made their bond more tense and complicated. This revelation shocked many, not only those who loved Elton, but also those who followed the royal family and those who spent time learning about Diana's life. The idea that Charles, who had a close relationship with Diana, could have been a factor in distancing her from her close friends, added new layers of complexity to an already complicated story. Elton explained that while the two shared a deep friendship and many fond memories, Charles's presence and influence created unnecessary tensions, making Diana feel as though she could not be free in her personal relationships. He found that the tight control of the royal family not only limited Diana's freedom, but also affected the way she interacted with close friends like him. This led to misunderstandings and conflicts in their relationship, which neither of them wanted but could not avoid. This revelation not only sparked heated discussions about the royal family, but also opened up a new perspective on how personal relationships can be affected by external factors, such as fame and social expectations. Elton hoped that through his sharing, he could show Diana as a strong, compassionate woman who was also very sensitive to the pressures that royal life brought. Ultimately, Elton's decision to speak out opens a new chapter in Diana's story, one that not only revolves around the challenges she faced, but also a lesson in friendship, loyalty, and the power of truth. He has shown that while life can be full of hardship and misunderstanding, love and support are always the most important things, and that protecting Diana's legacy is a task he will always cherish. He was well aware of the significant impact that his words would have, as well as the ripples that they would cause. But he would explain that the moment had now come to reveal the truth. The unbreakable bond. Understanding the beginnings of Elton and Diana's friendship. It is necessary to go back to the beginning of Elton's connection with Diana, which was a friendship that developed in the most unexpected of ways, in order to truly comprehend the magnitude of the disclosure that Elton has made. At the birthday celebration for Prince Andrew, which took place in 1981, the two individuals first came into contact with one another. It was a lovely summer evening. Diana was just beginning her position as the new Princess of Wales, and she was still recovering from her fairy tale wedding to Prince Charles. Elton, who was already a sensation on a global scale, was there to sing, and Diana was only beginning her stride into her role. Even as the evening progressed, the party continued to be nearly empty, which was an odd sight for an event that was receiving so much attention. On the other hand, this void served as a foundation for something enchanted. Diana, who was always eager to get away from the formality of royal responsibilities, found herself in the ballroom with Elton by herself during this time. While the dance band was performing a spirited Charleston, Diana approached Elton in an act of spontaneity and requested him to dance with them. It was a moment that might have been taken straight from a movie. Two public people who appeared to be on opposite sides of the planet came together on a dance floor that was completely vacant. They both laughed and danced, and for a fleeting moment, they were able to temporarily separate themselves from their roles as princesses and pop stars. What could have been a brief encounter turned out to be the beginning of a deep and lasting relationship between Princess Diana and Elton John. From that moment on, they were inseparable. Their relationship was more than just a connection between a music star and a member of the royal family. They built a foundation based on understanding and sharing personal experiences. Despite the glittering titles and bright spotlights, both were sensitive individuals who struggled with the heavy expectations placed on them by their different lives. They understood the loneliness that fame brought, and from that, a special bond was formed. They found comfort and support in each other, not only because they were famous, but also because they could share the pain and sadness of life. Elton spoke of Diana's courage in speaking out about issues she cared about, and Diana always admired Elton's creativity and talent. Their relationship became one of the most remarkable friendships in modern history, a genuine connection between two people. In private moments, they laughed together, cried together, and found moments of peace amid the storms of life. They helped each other through challenges, from lavish parties to personal crises. Despite the fact that Diana was stuck in a marriage that was becoming progressively miserable, she discovered comfort in Elton's sense of humor, empathy, and understanding. On the other hand, Diana was a breath of fresh air for Elton. She treated him not as a star, but as a friend. Diana was a lady who could laugh at the absurdities. They were seen by people all over the world attending a multitude of public events together during the course of their lives, always laughing and enjoying each other's company. Their smiles, however, hid a friendship that was much more complicated than anyone could have guessed. While their relationship brought them much happiness, it eventually became the cause of great hardship for them. Diana's personal struggles with royal life are discussed in the book Confidants in Crisis. As Diana's marriage to Prince Charles was falling apart, her friendship with Elton grew stronger. It wasn't until the mid-1980s that Diana's seemingly perfect royal life began to show some flaws. The responsibilities of royal duty took a significant toll on her health, and her marriage to Charles deteriorated behind the scenes, despite the fact that her story was considered a fairy tale. During this time, Diana's struggles with bulimia, self-deprecating thoughts, and feelings of loneliness began to surface, despite the fact that a significant portion of her struggles were hidden from the public eye at the time. Elton, who had gone through his own struggles with health issues, realized that Diana's struggles touched his heart on a deep level. Over time, he became more than just a friend. He became a trusted confidant, someone she could turn to at any time. Diana would reveal her greatest worries and frustrations, many of which revolved around her marriage to Charles during these private times. She would do so in relation to her relationship with Charles. Diana would open up to Elton about her feelings of isolation and sadness during long phone calls that took place late at night. Elton recalled these conversations. Her husband seemed more concerned with maintaining the image of the monarchy than with her happiness, and she felt trapped in a loveless marriage. Worse still, Charles was emotionally distant and more focused on his relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles than on mending the cracks in his marriage. It seemed to Diana that she was losing her identity. Elton had provided her with a sympathetic ear and a shoulder to cry on, and she found both in him. However, their friendship was not entirely without its joys and sorrows. The fact that they both had similar senses of humor was, in fact, one of the factors that drew them together so closely. A sharp wit and a fascination with the absurdities of life were two traits Diana and Elton shared. They often made each other laugh by telling each other stories about the oddities that came with their positions. The fact that they could find happiness even in the most difficult of circumstances was what made their friendship remarkable. However, as their relationship grew stronger, so did the tension between Diana and Charles. And as Elton later revealed, Charles was not just a bystander to Diana's troubles. Rather, he was actively involved in them. He was a significant contributor to the complexity of her personal relationships, especially her friendship with Elton, and he played a role in developing those dynamics. King Charles steps in. Invisible influence. Something much more disturbing was going on behind the scenes, as the relationship between Diana and Charles grew more and more strained by the day. Charles, who had always been extremely concerned with maintaining the royal image, saw Diana's growing popularity as a potential threat to the family's reputation. Through her charity work, openness to the public, and ability to connect with people on an emotional level, she became the most beloved royal figure, sometimes overshadowing Charles. As her influence grew, so did his need to control the narrative, including trying to exert power over her acquaintances. By this time, Elton had revealed that Charles, who was concerned about Diana's high-profile relationships with individuals outside the royal family, began to have more influence over her personal choices. Elton's flamboyant nature and his involvement with issues that were considered controversial at the time, such as his AIDS Foundation, were two of the things that concerned Charles the most. Due to the conservative nature of the royal family's views, they did not want to associate themselves with causes of this nature. When she realized that her friendship with Elton was becoming a burden, it was in her best interest to withdraw from the relationship. Diana, caught between her loyalty to Elton and her desire to maintain harmony within the royal family, began to feel the pressure of the situation. Ultimately, this hidden influence contributed to the rift that would eventually develop between Diana and Elton. This rift was something neither of them really realized at the time, but it would leave scars that would last a lifetime. The charity book controversy. A fallout begins. In 1997, just months before Diana's death, Elton and Diana's relationship reached its peak. At the time, Elton was working on a charity book to raise funds for his AIDS organization. This was a topic that was really close to his heart, especially at a time when the AIDS epidemic was still raging. Diana, who was known for her humanitarianism, had initially agreed to write the introduction to the book, which would feature pictures of prominent officials and public figures. This was a moment that Elton would never forget. Diana's involvement helped raise awareness of the issue. During that period in history, only a handful of celebrities were willing to get involved with the issue, and not even members of the royal family were among them. In Elton's view, Diana's support meant everything in the world, and he was extremely happy to have her involved. However, for almost no reason, Diana decided to withdraw from the project, leaving Elton completely unprepared. Suddenly, what seemed like a firm commitment took its toll, and he was not only confused but also deeply distressed. What made Diana abandon something she was so passionate about? As Elton later revealed, the answer lies in the hands of King Charles himself. Elton reported that Charles had voiced concerns about Diana's involvement in a project that was considered controversial. As the guardian of the monarchy's image, Charles may have been concerned that Diana's relationship with Elton could be misunderstood and cause unwanted controversy. The royal family is always cautious about any relationship. Faced with pressure from Charles, Diana had to make the difficult decision to weigh her support, which caused frustration for Elton. This event may have marked a turning point in their relationship, leading to complicated emotions. Elton felt hurt, not only by the change in their relationship, but also by the ideals they had once shared. This reflected the fact that Diana's life was no longer entirely hers, which may have created great pressure from royal expectations. Relationships that had previously brought her joy also became increasingly difficult. What Elton later called a deep freeze occurred in the friendship between Diana and Elton in the months following the charity book issue. The warmth that had previously characterized their relationship seemed to evaporate overnight, and the phone conversations and meetings they had had regularly became almost non-existent. Elton suffered greatly during this period. Diana had always been more important to him than a princess. She was a genuine, imperfect, and very human friend who was there for him through some of the most difficult times in his life. It was as if he had lost a vital part of himself when he suddenly lost that connection. On the other hand, Princess Diana was going through her own personal emotional struggles at the time. The stresses of her public life and the constant conflict she faced with the royal family she was in were all starting to take their toll on her. Apart from Elton, she had begun to distance herself from some of her closest friends. At the time, it seemed like the walls of Buckingham Palace were closing in on her, and there was no way out of the situation. However, just when it seemed like their relationship was over forever, a tragedy struck, bringing them back together in a way neither of them could have foreseen. With the passing of Versace, Elton and Diana had a turning point. Gianni Versace, a close friend of both Elton and Diana, passed away in July 1997, and it sent shockwaves through the fashion industry at the time. People around the world were horrified by the actions that led to his passing. However, for Elton and Diana, it was also something much more personal. Versace had been a close friend to both of them, and his passing brought them together after months of separation. In a strange turn of events, Diana and Elton found themselves sitting next to each other at Gianni Versace's funeral in Milan. Although they were both united in their grief, the tension that had defined their relationship seemed to melt away in the face of such a great loss. As the two walked hand in hand and whispered to each other, it seemed as if they had finally reconnected after months. The moment was a bittersweet one for Elton. However, although he was grateful to have Diana back in his life, the circumstances were incredibly sad. A close friend had passed away in many ways. However, in that moment of shared grief, it seemed as if they were able to put all of that aside and focus on what was truly important to them, their relationship. Unfortunately, their reconciliation was short-lived. Diana's passing had come as a surprise, leaving Elton deeply saddened as he had to deal with the loss of two close friends in such a short space of time. Diana's death was a shocking and emotional event. It was a difficult goodbye for all who loved her. Diana's tragic death. When it was announced that Princess Diana had died in a car crash in Paris on the 31st of August 1997, the world came to a standstill. Almost immediately, people were stunned and saddened, and the outpouring of grief from people around the world was unlike anything the modern world had ever seen before. On the other hand, this grief was extremely personal for Elton John. Diana had just reconciled with Elton after a long separation, and now she was gone. The loss was overwhelming for Elton. Although he had always known about Diana's struggles, he never expected her to die so suddenly and so sadly. During a time of global mourning, Elton faced a difficult situation: how to say goodbye to his dear friend in a way that respected her memory and the relationship they had. Elton knew that his performance at Diana's funeral would be one of the most important of his life when he was asked to play at the funeral. To do it right, he had to do it. Not just for himself, but for the millions of others grieving alongside him at that time. What followed was one of the most memorable events in modern history. Elton's performance of an edited version of Candle in the Wind, originally written for Marilyn Monroe, became a moving tribute to Diana. People around the planet were in tears as he sang "Goodbye, England's Rose." Elton's voice provided the soundtrack to the world's sadness at this moment of global grief, a moment of collective mourning. King Charles's reaction to Elton's tribute. At Diana's funeral, Elton gave a performance filled with heartfelt emotion. However, there were some individuals who were unhappy with the decision to have him perform backstage. Recent reports suggest that King Charles was initially concerned about having such a current and emotional performance at what was supposed to be a formal royal event. This was due to the solemnity of the ceremony. It is said that Charles, who was once again concerned about preserving the majesty and tradition of the monarchy, had concerns about the possibility of Elton playing Candle in the Wind at the burial. He was concerned that the performance would overshadow the more conventional aspects of the ceremony and focus too much on the public's emotional expression rather than the royal family's ceremonial grief. After intervention from the Dean of Westminster, who understood the need for the public to grieve in a way that appeared genuine, the decision was made to allow Elton to perform. This was the only time this decision was made. While the Dean knew that Diana's passing had impacted the lives of millions of people, he also recognized that her funeral needed to reflect the emotional connection she had with those individuals. An additional element of difficulty was added to Elton's already emotional day when he learned that Charles had expressed some reservations about his performance. Through his reverence for Diana, he knew that this was not just for Diana herself, but for all those who loved her. However, the tension that existed between him and Charles was clear, and this was another instance of Elton and the royal family being at odds with each other. Prince Harry and Elton's relationship with each other. Despite Elton's disagreements with King Charles, Elton's connection to the royal family continued to grow, this time through Prince Harry, Diana's youngest son. From a young age, Harry and Elton had a special bond, and after Diana's death, that bond only deepened. As Harry grew older, he saw Elton not only as a friend, but also as a valuable source of support. Elton, who had admired Diana's warmth and compassion, saw that Harry possessed similar qualities. He understood the enormous pressure Harry faced as a member of the royal family and was keen to help Harry through those challenges, in the same way Diana had supported Elton throughout his life. Their bond became even more evident when Elton performed at Harry and Meghan Markle's wedding in 2018. It was more than just a musical performance. It was a celebration of Elton and Harry's relationship. Elton's presence at this momentous occasion demonstrated their friendship and support for each other, while also recalling Diana's legacy and the values she passed on to the next generation. This friendship was not just a bond between two individuals, but part of a larger story of love, support, and kindness within the context of the royal family. Elton's performance was more than just a performance. It demonstrated his deep passion for Diana's children and his determination to be there for them, even as their relationships with other members of the royal family became more strained. Elton has always seen himself as a part of Harry and Meghan's lives, committed to supporting them through difficult times. As Harry's relationship with his father, King Charles, has become increasingly estranged, Elton has once again found himself at the center of a rift within the royal family. The complexities of their relationship have put Elton in a position where he must weigh friendship against duty. His last chance to show support is to stand by Harry and Meghan in an increasingly difficult situation. Over the past few years, Harry and Meghan Markle have faced a lot of criticism from the media and the public, which has only added to the pressure on them. In this context, Elton has emerged as one of their most outspoken supporters. When Harry and Meghan were accused of using private jets, Elton himself spoke out to clear things up. He not only defended their rights, but also emphasized the importance of empathy and understanding in the difficult circumstances they faced. Elton has always believed that it is necessary to stand up for the people he loves, especially when they are in trouble. His support for Harry and Meghan is not simply a personal act, but also reflects a strong belief in friendship and solidarity in challenging times. Through these actions, Elton continues to affirm his role as a loyal friend, willing to fight for those he cares about, even when it means facing challenges from the royal family. Elton John has said he arranged a flight to his residence in Nice, ensuring that all required carbon offsets were made. This not only demonstrates his commitment to the environment, but also shows that he is committed to the principles he stands for. In a passionate public speech, Elton publicly supported Harry and Meghan, stressing the importance of friendship and empathy in difficult times. However, this support has not been without its problems. The rift between Elton and the rest of the royal family, especially King Charles, has become more strained than ever after he publicly sided with the couple. This support has reinforced Elton's commitment to standing up for the principles he believes in, a legacy he learned from Diana. For Elton, standing up for Harry and Meghan was not just a personal act, but also a powerful step toward upholding the values he and Diana held dear. Elton John has always admired Princess Diana's courage in speaking out against injustice and fighting for what is good. Not only has he admired her, but he has also shown strong support for Diana's children, Prince William and Prince Harry, and has done everything he can to help them on their journeys in life. This connection is not just between friends, but also a legacy that he feels a responsibility to protect and grow. Reflecting on his decades-long relationship with Diana, Elton cannot help but realize one important thing. She left behind a powerful legacy that will last for generations. This legacy is not just about memories and happy moments, but also about lessons in kindness, empathy, and strength in the face of challenges. In Elton's view, Diana was more than just a member of the royal family. She symbolized something much more noble than the monarchy itself. She was a voice for the vulnerable, a model of courage and compassion in a complex world. This is what makes her legacy so special and important, not only in Elton's eyes, but in the hearts of millions of people around the world. As a close friend, Elton John feels a great responsibility to protect and honor the legacy of Princess Diana. He not only wants to preserve her fond memories, but also wants to create a safe space for Diana's children, Prince William and Prince Harry, to grow up without the pressures of the strict expectations of the royal system. He understands that in the challenging context of royal life, the support and guidance of a friend like himself can be crucial. Elton hopes that the valuable lessons from Diana's life will be passed on to future generations, so that people will realize that courage, love, and kindness are eternal values that we need to maintain and promote. Diana was more than just a princess. She embodied noble qualities such as compassion, sensitivity, and openness to change. She demonstrated the ability to communicate and connect with people on a personal level, overcoming the barriers of social convention and formality. This created a special appeal and made her widely known not only in her country but also around the world. Although Diana's life was cut short in 1997, her influence is still felt around the world. She left a legacy not only through her charity work, but also through the way she lived and interacted with those around her. Her efforts in areas such as mental health, AIDS, and support for the poor created a positive change in society. Diana encouraged people to face difficult issues and look at them in a more humane way. Elton also emphasized that Although time may pass, the qualities that Diana demonstrated will live on in people's hearts. He believes that the values she stood for will continue to spread, encouraging people to live with empathy and compassion. Through the activities and campaigns that he, Harry, and Meghan are involved in, Elton wants to continue Diana's spirit and promote a better world for everyone. Elton's book, reflecting on Diana's legacy, is a mixture of grief and gratitude. He is saddened by the loss of a friend who had the potential to do so much more, but he is also filled with joy at the enormous impact she had during her time on this planet. And despite his strained relationship with King Charles, he has never wavered in honoring Diana's legacy. Breaking his silence. Elton's final words on Charles and Diana. It's no surprise that Elton John has decided to break his silence about his complicated relationships with Princess Diana and King Charles. After years of reflection and witnessing the changes within the royal family, he has finally decided to speak out about his memories, feelings, and deep reflections on both important figures in his life. In his final statements about Charles and Diana, Elton expressed his deep sadness at the way things went between him and Diana, as well as the demanding demands that royal life placed on her, which contributed to their separation. He was unflinching in his comments about the pressures Diana faced, from maintaining a public image to royal expectations, and how these pressures affected her mental health. Elton reflects on the complex dynamics of the royal family, clearly aware that it is a challenging environment where every action and decision must be carefully considered. He feels that this not only affected Diana, but also those around her, including her children. He cannot help but think of the pressures that Prince William and Prince Harry are facing, and how they are similar to their mother in the way they have had to navigate their personal lives in a public setting. While he acknowledges that the royal family is a difficult family, Elton also sees the strength and courage that Diana has shown throughout her life. He believes that his decision to speak out is not only a personal reflection of their relationship, but also a testament to the far-reaching impact that Diana's life and legacy had on the world. Her legacy is not only reflected in her charitable work, but also in the values of love, courage, and empathy that he has strived to uphold and promote. Elton acknowledges that his words cannot change the past. However, he feels that by sharing his truth, he can pay homage to the memory of a woman he cherished and respected. He hopes that his message will not only shed light on their friendship, but also encourage people to see and treat each other with compassion, especially in difficult situations. Ultimately, through his sharing, Elton not only wants to celebrate Diana's life, but also emphasize the importance of preserving her memory, so that future generations can understand and feel the values she stood for. He hopes that Diana's stories of courage and love will continue to live on, inspiring people in their everyday lives. Breaking his silence was not just about telling Elton his story, it was about more than that. It was about ensuring that Diana's legacy would continue to live on in the hearts of those who knew her and those who loved her from a different place. As Elton moves into the next phase of his life, he will be stronger than ever. Even if it's possible that his relationship with the royal family may never be fully healed, the love and respect he had for Diana will remain at the core of his entire story. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment to let us know what you think. Don't forget to like, share, and follow us for the latest updates on your favorite celebrities. See you in the next videos.